Raghunath Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bhujabose Jugala Piriti
Rupa
Raghunath Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bhujabose Jugala Piriti Rupa Raghunath Pade Raho Mor Ash Prarthana Koroye Shada Narottam Das
Rupa
Raghunath
Pade Raho
Raghunath
Mor Ash Prarthana Koroye Shada Narottam Das Gauranga Bolite Habe Ulaka Sharir Hari Hari Bolite Nayane Babeni
Gauranga
Bolite Habe
Ulaka
Sharir Hari Hari Bolite Nayane Babeni Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajak Acharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol.
All glory to God, Shri Guru
Namo
and Shri
Vishnupadaya Krishna
Gauranga.
Krishnaya Bhutale
Namo
Srimati
Vishnu
Bhakti
Padaya
Vedanta
Krishna
Shami Iti Namane
Namane
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
We are studying the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 7, and now we're on text 93.
এত বলি এক শ্লোক শিখাইল মোরে ভাগবতের সার এই বলে বারে বারে.
Saying this, my spiritual master taught me one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the essence of all the Bhagavatam's instructions. Therefore, he instructed me in this verse again and again. Purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 40th verse, was spoken by Sri Narad Muni to Vasudeva to teach him about Bhagavat Dharma. Vasudeva had already achieved the result of Bhagavat Dharma because Lord Krishna appeared in his house as his son. Yet, in order to teach others, he desired to hear from Sri Narad Muni to be enlightened in the process of Bhagavat Dharma. This is the humbleness of a great devotee. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshut Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kritamayam Dadati Sha Pandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we haven't read the verse yet from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 40th verse. Although it's not mentioned here, the background of this, I just thought I'd mention that during Lord Krishna's presence, physical or his presence on the earth, for the first part of his manifest pastimes, he was in Vrindavan. Then after about 26 or after about 11, 12 years, he went to Mathura. And then about 18 years after that, or 17 years after that, he went to Dwarka. And he resided in Dwarka for the rest of that time. So a person who was often there in Dwarka during the time of Lord Krishna's manifest pastimes was Narad Muni. You might remember that Narad Muni went to kind of investigate what Lord Krishna was doing in all of his 16,108 palaces, because sometimes it's seen that a advanced yogi can expand him or herself into many forms, up to 9 forms. So they can be in 9 places or show 9 forms at once. But the restriction for the yogi is that whatever one form does, the main form does, that all the other forms have to do also. So when Narad Muni was doing his investigation there in Dwarka, he went to all the different palaces of Lord Krishna. That's a lot of palaces. And he noted that in every one, Lord Krishna was doing something different. So he was amazed at Lord Krishna's super excellent mystic power, that he could expand himself into all those forms and be doing different things in each place. So somebody might say, well, I thought Narad Muni was cursed by Daksha. You know that curse, anybody?
Yes.
What is that curse?
You cannot remain in one place.
That's right. Very good, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu. Yeah, because Narad Muni had preached to Daksha's, 2 sets of Daksha's sons, and got them to join the Krishna consciousness movement instead of becoming materialists, even though they were very pious materialists. And Daksha got angry and cursed Narad Muni. You can't stay any place for a long time, for more than a few moments. But here, Narad Muni was staying in Dwarka. Why is that? Who said? Who knows?
Because the curse doesn't apply in Dwarka.
Who's that?
Sudevi.
Mother Sudevi. Very good. Thank you. Yes, because the transcendental realm, Dwarka, or the spiritual world, those material curses don't have any effect. Very good. Yeah. So even though he was in the material realm, he couldn't stay any place very long. In Dwarka, he could stay, and he took a lot of time, spending a lot of time in Dwarka while Lord Krishna's manifest presence were there. And he visited here in this verse, he visited the house of Vasudeva, and this was just around the time when there was the Yadu dynasty was destroying itself. And but Vasudeva inquired from Narad Muni about the path of pure devotional service, as mentioned here. One other thing is about this part of the Caitanya Caritamrita to note is that in the whole Caitanya Caritamrita, there's very few references to Lord Chaitanya's interactions with his spiritual master Ishwarapuri. They're not very, it's not described in detail very much, but this is one area where it's revealed very nicely about how Lord Chaitanya, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he took instruction from his guru about how to advance in devotional service. And this area is highlighted in the beginning here of Caitanya Caritamrita. A couple other places, there's brief mentions of Ishwarapuri and his activities, but this is the main one, Lord Chaitanya's interaction with his own guru, Ishwarapuri. Questions or comments about that? Okay, we'll go to the next verse.
That's Sanskrit.
Yeah. Evang vritasva priyanama kirtya jatanurago druta chitta uchchay hasatya toro ditiroti gayati unmadavan mityati lokabhaya. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated, and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. Text 95-96.
এই তার বাক্যে আমি দৃঢ় বিশ্বাস ধরি, নিরন্তর কৃষ্ণ নাম সংকীর্তন করি, সেই কৃষ্ণ নাম কবু গাওয়ায় নাচায়, গাহি নাচি নাহি আমি আপন ইচ্ছায়।
I firmly believe in these words of my spiritual master, and therefore I always chant the holy names of the Lord, alone and in the association of devotees. That holy name of Lord Krishna sometimes causes me to chant and dance, and therefore I chant and dance. Please do not think that I intentionally do it. I do it automatically. Purport: a person who cannot keep his faith in the words of his spiritual master, but acts independently, never receives the authority to chant the holy name of the Lord. It is said in the Vedas, Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyaiti katitahyartha prakashante mahatmana. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. This Vedic injunction is very important. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu supported it by his personal behavior. Believing in the words of his spiritual master, he introduced the Sankirtan movement, just as the present Krishna consciousness movement was started with belief in the words of our spiritual master. He wanted to preach. We believed in his words and tried somehow or other to fulfill them. And now this movement has become successful all over the world. Therefore, faith in the words of the spiritual master and in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the secret of success. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never disobeyed the orders of his spiritual master and stopped propagating the Sankirtan movement. Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, at the time of his passing away, ordered all his disciples to work conjointly to preach the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. Later, however, some self-interested, foolish disciples disobeyed his orders. Each one of them wanted to become head of the mission, and they fought in the courts, neglecting the order of the spiritual master, and the entire mission was defeated. We are not proud of this. However, the truth must be explained. We believed in the words of our spiritual master and started in a humble way, in a helpless way, but due to the spiritual force of the order of the supreme authority, this movement has become successful. It is to be understood that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted and danced, he did so by the influence of the pleasure potency of the spiritual world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never considered the holy name of the Lord to be a material vibration, nor does any pure devotee mistake the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to be a material musical manifestation. Lord Chaitanya never tried to be the master of the holy name. Rather, he taught us how to be servants of the holy name. If one chants the holy name of the Lord just to make a show, not knowing the secret of success, he may increase his bile secretion, but he will never attain perfection in chanting the holy name. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented himself in this way. I am a great fool and do not have knowledge of right and wrong. In order to understand the real meaning of Vedanta Sutra, I never followed the explanation of the Shankara Sampradaya or the Mayavadi sannyasis. I'm very much afraid of the illogical arguments of the Mayavadi philosophers. Therefore, I think I have no authority regarding their explanations of Vedanta Sutra. I firmly believe that simply chanting the holy name of the Lord can remove all misconceptions of the material world. I believe that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can attain the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. In this age of quarrel and disagreement, the chanting of the holy names is the only way to liberation from the material clutches. By chanting the holy name, Lord Caitanya continued, I became almost mad. However, after inquiring from my spiritual master, I have come to the conclusion that instead of striving for achievement in the four principles of religiosity, dharma, economic development, artha, sense gratification, kama, and liberation, moksha, it is better if somehow or other one develops transcendental love of Godhead. That is the greatest success of life. One who has attained love of Godhead chants and dances by his nature, not caring for the public. This stage of life is known as Bhagavat Jivan, or the life of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, I never chanted and danced to make an artificial show. I dance and chant because I firmly believe in the words of my spiritual master. Although the Mayavadi philosophers do not like this chanting and dancing, I nevertheless perform it on the strength of his words. Therefore, it is to be concluded that I deserve very little credit for these activities of chanting and dancing, for they are being done automatically by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was a very long and powerful purport, and I'd like to get input from Mother Sudevi, Krishna Kirtan, Mother Mitravinda, others, Dronacharya Prabhu, on this, questions or comments on this purport here. Acharya Prabhu.
I wanted to comment or question here.
Yes, please.
It's a very nice, very clear how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has sharing his experiences. Of course, he is Supreme Personality of Godhead. A person who cannot keep his faith in the words of the spiritual master but acts independently never receives the authority to chant the holy name of the Lord. I understand that unless one devotee is really genuinely sincere, who works on these weaknesses, in general, the tendency is not to take authority, right?
Yeah, that's us. Yeah, in the material world, we do that. Who are you to tell me what to do?
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking myself. Mind always says, "Oh, why should I listen? Why should I listen?" So submitting is not in very easy. Accepting authority is not in very easy. Even though we take initiation, even after we take initiation, understanding what is the authority, what is submitting to spiritual master, knowing who is spiritual master, that seems not a very easy task.
Yes, good, agreed. You pointed out, receives the authority to chant the holy name of the Lord. Well, hey, we're chanting the holy name, right? But I think, as you pointed out, that's authority to chant the holy name means continually, purely, without offense, and that retakes, determination and care, and not in following the instructions of the spiritual master, and you know, two things come to mind as we chant japa. Sometimes it seems like, well, we're not making any progress. I have no attachment, no appreciation for chanting the holy name at all. But the example that Srila Prabhupada gives in the Bhagavad Gita is about the little sparrow that tries to dry up the ocean because the ocean took her eggs, and she's going beak by beak back to the ocean, into the ocean, taking a beak full of water and coming back to the shore in an attempt to dry up the ocean to get her eggs back. And what possibility is there? But then Garuda sees the plight of his sister bird and takes it up and threatens the ocean. So then the ocean gives the eggs back. So something like that. We're giving our attempt to please Krishna, to chant the holy name very nicely, but we're making so many mistakes. But by continuing to do it and trying to improve and pray to Krishna to help us make the improvement, Krishna helps. The holy name helps us out. Lord Krishna and the spiritual master help us out that way.
These always Giriraj Swami Maharaj was sharing once with Brahmananda and Prabhupada with Brahmananda. You know, Prabhupada is observing his disciples. So one day, some steep space, it seems they're walking, and Brahmananda Prabhu extended his hand to Prabhupada to lift him. So Prabhupada accepted his hand, and immediately Prabhupada rejected his hand, threw his hand like that. So Brahmananda Prabhu thought why Prabhupada did this. And later he explained that this is Mayavada. You know, we take help at the beginning when we need, then we reject. We don't follow any more authority. Now we are our own independent.
Yes. Yeah, actually, it wasn't Brahmananda, it was Bhavananda. That was, he used to tell that story quite a bit. Bhavananda used to tell. So yeah, take the help of the guru. It was to get up on a certain elevated part and then kick away afterwards. Yeah, good point. Very good. I see there's hands up here. Dronacharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vishnugada Prabhu.
Hello, Dronacharya Prabhu. How do you go?
You asked for, I guess, comments on this particular verse and purport.
Yeah.
So I guess I just want to be clear on the correct understanding. I guess from the way we're trained materially, and the materialistic mindset is that we work really hard at something to accomplish something, and then we claim the credit for it. We think that we're the doers. And here it seems as if it is speaking about empowerment. That is not us. It's actually the Krishna's energy that's making these things happen. Why, by having faith and endeavoring to execute the will and desire of the spiritual master, Krishna then gives the empowerment to make those things occur. It is not on our particular strength that it occurs, but through adherence to the orders of the spiritual master. Is that correct? Is that the?
Yes, very, very good emphasis, a point on that. We want to think that we're in control and we're in charge of things, and we do things, and because things happen because of what we do. But in Krishna consciousness, we have to endeavor for pleasing Krishna, but ultimately Krishna, if we're doing what he wants, he makes all arrangements for things to happen in the way he wants. Very important, as you mentioned. Thank you. Very good point. I like that point. I forget about that point all the time. And it's good to remind ourselves we're not God. We're not in charge of things. And if we surrender to Krishna's will and the will of the spiritual master, wonderful things can happen. By my own effort, you won't find much wonderful things. But Krishna can do wonderful things. Spiritual master can do wonderful things through us by surrender.
The other, I wanted to ask also, Srila Prabhupada brought up the comparison, I guess, of what happens if you, I guess, maybe don't take to the orders of the spiritual master. And I guess he gave the example of, devotees that started fighting over, who had control of the mission or who had control of the properties or the mat, and maybe got distracted from such. That was my understanding of why he brought that up in this context. What do you think so? Or
Yeah.
what do you think the purpose was?
Yeah, because they put aside the order of the spiritual master to work together to spread the Sankirtan movement, and instead, the details are there, that there were two main big temples in Gaudiya Math. One was in Mayapur, which was the Caitanya Math, and the other was in Kolkata, the Bagh Bazar Math. So these two main temples were there. And even though Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave instructions repeatedly that he didn't appoint anybody as a successor guru, successor acharya, but he wanted the members to work together to spread the Sankirtan. Just after his passing, the person in charge of the Bagh Bazar Math said he was the new acharya, and he gathered many supporters. And the person who was in charge of the Caitanya Math said he's the new acharya and everybody should work under him. So then there was litigation that went on for years, decades, about who was in charge of the Gaudiya Math mission. So actually one became Gaudiya Math, one became Gaudiya mission. And so all the energy and money was put into the fight to find out who. And so concomitantly, the push to spread Krishna consciousness waned. So as Prabhupada said, he said that we're not proud of this. So it's not that he wants to broadcast the faults of the Gaudiya Math for some other reason, but to warn us that we should not fall into similar mentality, and putting aside the spiritual master's order to preach, to assimilate or to keep our position, our material position, because that happened. And on the other hand, Srila Prabhupada, anytime he interacted with his godbrothers, even those godbrothers who were instrumental in doing, in splitting the Gaudiya Math, he was always extremely respectful to them. But he's pointing it out, as you were mentioning, for our edification, how important it is. And even in such a great mission as the mission of his spiritual master, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, incredibly elevated, pure soul, starting the mission. Even then, it can be problems. So what to speak of our mission also, this ISKCON mission could also be waylaid by deviation or going away from the orders of our guru, our preceptor, Srila Prabhupada. What do you think?
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Goda. I think Mother Vatsala had her hand up. I don't see it now. Did she leave?
No, I'm here, Prabhu. We
Okay.
were having an interesting discussion. I wanted to listen carefully.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhu, I have one thing. I mean, I cannot imagine how Lord Chaitanya, came to this world for us, and he said, "Don't worry about the 4 paths, and then just chant." And that's very simple instruction. Instead of fighting over any of those things or what is happening, what is not happening, just like he listened to his guru, I think we have to listen to Srila Prabhupada, and he gave us a very clear instructions what to do, what not to do. Just follow him, and then Srila Prabhupada's chanting of Hare Krishna and dancing. And one of the instances, some lectures I listened, the dancing actually it purifies you. Sankirtan party, and before that I was I was not involved in dancing, but when he actually said dancing and thinking of Krishna and just following the instructions and chanting is really purifying to the heart. And maybe one day eventually we may get to see Krishna. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
maybe
you for
one day we can dance also.
Yes.
We don't find, I mean, we make a little shuffle sometimes, but
Yes.
actual dancing is, actually raising the hands and dancing for the pleasure of Krishna is a little bit rare nowadays.
Yes.
Maybe one day we can, I was looking at a recording of devotees on a program called the David Susskind Show. It was in 1971. David Susskind was a TV show host, and he invited the Hare Krishna devotees to his program, and it was filmed there. And at the end of the program, he invited the devotees to do the Sankirtan, and it was really amazing the chanting and dancing that went on there in the TV studio. It really gives you a sense of the incredible enthusiasm of the time, that we can also capture nowadays with if we firmly believe in the words of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. Maybe one day we can look at that and see, just remember that, which kind of exhibits this chanting and dancing with ecstasy. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay. Next.
কৃষ্ণ নামে যে আনন্দ সিন্ধু আস্বাদন, ব্রহ্মানন্দ তার আগে খাতোদক সম.
Compared to the ocean of transcendental bliss, which is tasted by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, the pleasure derived from impersonal Brahman realization, Brahmananda, is like the shallow water in a canal. Purport. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is stated, Brahmanando bhavet esha chet paradha gunikrita naiti bhakti shukham bodhe paramanu tulam api. If Brahmanda, the transcendental bliss derived from understanding impersonal Brahman, were multiplied a million times, such a quantity of Brahmanda could not compare with even an atomic portion of the pleasure relished in pure devotional service. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1:138. Text 98.
Sanskrit.
Tvat sakshad karanalada vishuddhabdhi stitasya me shukane goshpadayante brahmanyapi jagadguru. My dear Lord, O Master of the universe, since I have directly seen you, my transcendental bliss has taken the shape of a great ocean. Being situated in that ocean, I now realize all other so-called happiness to be like the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf. Purport. The transcendental bliss enjoyed in pure devotional service is like an ocean, whereas material happiness and even the happiness to be derived from the realization of impersonal Brahman are just like the water in the hoofprint of a calf. This is a verse from the Hari Bhakti Sutodaya, 1436. Text 99.
প্রভুর মিষ্ট বাক্য শুনি সন্ন্যাসীর গণ চিত্ত ফিরি গেল কহে মধুর বচন।
Madhur Vachan, yeah. After hearing Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, all the Mayavadi sannyasis were moved. Their minds changed, and thus they spoke with pleasing words. Purport. The Mayavadi sannyasis met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Varanasi to criticize the Lord regarding his participation in the Sankirtan movement, which they did not like. This demonic nature of opposition to the Sankirtan movement perpetually exists. As it existed in the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, similarly, it existed long before that, even in the time of Prahlad Maharaj. He used to chant in Sankirtan, although his father did not like it. And that was the reason for misunderstanding between father and son. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradhama mayaya pahita jnana asurim bhavam ashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 15th verse. The Mayavadi sannyasis are asuram bhavam ashrita, which means that they have taken the path of the asuras, demons, who do not believe in the existence of the form of the Lord. The Mayavadis say that the ultimate source of everything is impersonal. And in this way, they deny the existence of God. Saying that there is no God is direct denial of God, and saying that God exists but has no head, legs, and hands, and cannot speak, hear, or eat is a negative way of denying his existence. A person who cannot see is called blind. One who cannot walk can be called lame. One who has no hands can be called helpless. And one who cannot speak can be called dumb. And one who cannot hear can be called deaf. The Mayavadi's proposition that God has no legs, no eyes, no ears, and no hands is an indirect way of insulting him by defining him as blind, deaf, dumb, lame, helpless, etc. Therefore, although they present themselves as great Vedantists, they are factually Maya Yaparhita Jnana. In other words, they seem to be very learned scholars, but the essence of their knowledge has been taken away. Impersonalist Mayavadis always try to defy Vaishnavas because Vaishnavas accept the Supreme Personality as the supreme cause and want to serve him, talk with him, and see him, just as the Lord is also eager to see his devotees and talk, eat, and dance with them. You didn't know that. These personal exchanges of love do not appeal to the Mayavadi sannyasis. Therefore, the original purpose of the Mayavadi sannyasis of Benares in meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to defeat his personal conception of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, as a preacher, turned the minds of the Mayavadi sannyasis. They were melted by the sweet words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and thus became friendly and spoke to him also in sweet words. Similarly, all preachers will have to meet opponents, but they should not make them more inimical. They are already enemies, and if we talk with them harshly or impolitely, their enmity will merely increase. We should therefore follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as far as possible and try to convince the opposition by quoting from the Shastras and presenting the conclusion of the Acharyas. It is in this way that we should try to defeat all the enemies of the Lord. Questions or comments on this purport here? Mother Golokananda Priya, I see your hand up.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Well, you've been reading, and so in most of the purport, Prabhupada is talking about saying personalism, Mayavadi. I'm just saying the Mayavadi, they denied the personal form, but they believe in the Brahman, isn't it? The Brahma Jyoti of the Lord. Yes. It's not like part of the Lord. So in case, they achieve perfection, they go to the Brahman. How long do they stay there? And how long do they stay in the Brahma Jyoti? How do they get liberated? For them, liberation is to merge into the Brahman.
Yes.
So Prabhupada is a demon. So a demon, how can they be part of the, merge in the Brahman, which is part of Krishna, partial representation of Krishna?
Yes. Well, first of all, there's a good question. Thank you. There's impersonalists and the Mayavadis. Sometimes we address them as the same, and sometimes they're different. So there's also a term called Brahmavadi. So an impersonalist doesn't necessarily decry the form or personality of Godhead, whereas a Mayavadi, just by the word Mayavad, they say that the form of Krishna, his pastimes, his his qualities, etc., are Maya. So the Mayavadis specifically, even more than, some impersonalists can be just more partial to the impersonal Brahman, but not reject the personal form of the Lord. So then your question is, how can they be merging into the impersonal feature, the Brahma Jyoti? Well, everything is a part of the Lord. So they make some progress and they stay there in the Brahma Jyoti, but it's a temporary condition because they still have the interest to enjoy separately from God. Therefore, even though they go very high, they come back to the material world to satisfy that desire. Yes, so the impersonalists go there, and also when Krishna kills demons, they're free from their karmic reactions, so many karmic reactions, but they also go to the Brahma Jyoti. Krishna has a place for everybody in this world, and for those people who have freed from so many karmic reactions, but they don't have pure consciousness, they go to the Brahma Jyoti. Aruya Krichchena Padam Padam Tata. You know that verse. They go, Mother Sudevi, you know the whole verse? Are you still there?
Yes. Chikina Padam Padam Pachantiada. Anisha, I can't remember.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd know. There's within there. There's Avishuddha Buddhaya. Avishuddha Buddhaya. It means that their intelligence is still not purified completely. So it's a place for people, for those people. Every place, Krishna has a place for everybody in this world, and that's a place for those people who have made very good progress in cleansing their sinful reactions, but they still have that desire to enjoy or be prominent more than Krishna. I don't know, other people. Mother Sudevi, you might have a comment on that.
One time I asked Jayadvaita Swami this question about, demon killings and get impersonal liberations. How good is that? And he said, anything is better than here.
Okay. on the other hand, Prabodhananda Saraswati said, you know this, Kaivalyam narakayate, akasha tridasha purpushpayate. Kaivalyam, that impersonal liberation, narakayate for a devotee is hell. Why? Because at least in hell there's a possibility of engaging in devotional service, but not in Brahmajyoti, in Kaivalya. So there's different ways to look at it. But whatever way we look at it, it's not our goal. Usually also Srila Prabhupada used to say about impersonal liberation that within this world, all of us are trying to think how we can become the topmost person, in our family, in our community, in our corporation, in our country, who's going to be the topmost person. And when we get frustrated, then we think, well, we'll become God. So he used to say, that's the last snare of Maya. So it's the last snare of Maya is thinking. Usually the Mayavadis think they merge into the Brahmajyoti, so they become God by doing so. They are God. Therefore, they address themselves as Namo Narayana. Of course, here, Lord Chaitanya, in addressing the Mayavadi sannyasis, he didn't get heavy with them, but he spoke very kindly, with sweet words, and expressed the actual conclusion of the acharyas. So that's a good lesson. In Vaisheshik Prabhu's book on the art of distributing the transcendental literature, he describes in one of the chapters the importance of because there's so many people are inimical to you if you're trying to spread Krishna consciousness and introduce books or encourage people to take to the Hare Krishna chanting. Mostly people will be inimical to you, but if you respond with malice or anger or frustration, they'll pick it up, and there's no way that it's very unlikely that they'll take to Krishna consciousness or be interested. So one of the austerities and important practices of advanced devotees is to learn humility, to be able to approach someone even who has a negative approach to you, and treat them with kindness and compassion. That's an advanced person, and it's important to practice that. I don't have that quality, but maybe some of you have developed it somewhat. It's a good practice. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vishnugada Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vishnugada Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed, and it was very useful for me, at least, to remember.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripasindhuvevacha Titanam Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti
Thank you.
Vaishnavebhyo.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.